Hello, welcome to today's webinar. I see we have a few people joining us again after Tuesday's employment version. So this is our small business owners version. Today is like a super crazy day to have this webinar. I'll explain the hat in a minute. Because there is one of the New York City loans due today at 5 p.m. So I'm going to cover that first in case anyone needs to like jump off and go apply, and then you can watch this later. But then also the big federal loan that everyone's fighting over, applications are going live today too. So I've been super scrambling around all day. Oh, someone's saying can't get audio. Laura, can you hear me? Can everybody hear me? Okay, other people can hear me. One person can't hear me. Everyone else can hear me. I think it's you, guy. All right. So I've been like totally scrambling around all day. And in fact, I have an emergency bat signal system where if my husband runs in with the phone and it's Chase Bank, I'm gonna jump off and go apply for the loan. So it'll be like kind of insane if that happens, but we're all kind of rolling with the punches here. So, all right. The reason for the funny hat is that the only reason I am doing this webinar, as opposed to a lot of other people who probably know a lot more than I do, is that lawyers in general are rightfully very particular about making sure we know 100% of all the facts before we give you the information. And right now, with everything changing so quickly, that's really just not possible. So I'm going to do my best. I've been following along with the legislation and the guidance and talking to people and figuring everything out. But I am wearing my lawyer hat right now, and I am going to very dramatically and memorably remove my lawyer hat as a means of saying, please don't sue my ass. I am not your lawyer. This is just, oh man, that totally messed up my hair. This is just me doing my best with the information that's coming out. So, lawyer hat on, lawyer hat memorably and dramatically off. All right, let's pull up our slideshow. By the way, thank you. A lot of you wrote in chats about if you can hear me. I love getting these chats. It makes me feel like I'm not talking to myself. So throughout the webinar, if you have questions, you can write them in by chat. If we have time at the end for Q&A, which we probably will, then we'll go through and answer any popular questions. But I'll also ask some questions of you here and there. So like if anyone was at my Tuesday webinar, like shoot me a friendly note so I know. I'll be like, hey, nice to see you again. All right. Got it. No. Wait. Oh, there we go. Okay. Now we ended up at the end. All right. This is just my inspirational introductory slide that you can peruse and think about while I introduce myself and talk a little about what to expect today. So my name is Susan Crumiller. I am the founder of Crumiller PC, the feminist litigation firm. We represent employees in all types of matters, although our focus is on pregnancy discrimination. We represent employees in age discrimination, race discrimination, severance negotiations, and we also represent people experiencing sexual harassment or assault outside the employment context, for example, in the medical providers context. So as a small business owner myself, experiencing my very first ever global pandemic, I've been sort of, frantically trying to compile all this information for my own business. So I'm here to share that with you. And of course, as an employment attorney, I have a special focus on employment rights, so we'll get into that stuff too. Yes, in terms of the Tuesday webinar, we do have the recording available. I'll make sure that we're going to send out this recording and these slides to all of today's participants. And we'll also make sure to include the link to last Tuesday's webinar and those slides as well. The Tuesday webinar was focused on employment. It was for employees, but it's the same information, on the other side. All right, so as you can see in my little inspirational hope slide, it's very easy for all of us, including myself, I think, to feel under siege and like we're in feel out of control, and like there's nothing we can do in this terrible situation, which is made even worse by our homicidal maniac of a genocidal president. And so, to me, I think getting the money that I can get for my business so that I can continue my anti-discrimination work, and for my employees and for New York City to keep living our best lives and fight and get through this, it makes me feel a little bit more in control. And I find that really helpful. So I hope that we can all share that together and that we can all help each other get through this and do the best we can. All right, here at your service, on today's menu, grants, grants, grants. I think that's the #1 question that most people are interested in hearing about, so that will be the main focus. But I'm also going to talk about unemployment benefits, which are newly expanded under these acts. Oh shoot, I didn't update this. We're not going to talk about health insurance. It's my fault. I'm doing all this stuff on the fly. Staying safe, keeping your employees safe, your obligations to your employees. Okay, this is the one that's due today. So I'm just gonna first cover sort of the emergency things that are due today. Okay, there's 2 New York City grants. This one, New York City Employee Retention Grant Program. This is due today at 5 p.m. So I made this absolutely first. So if you qualify for this and you haven't applied, like after this slide, you should just get off of here, go get your application in, and then you can watch the rest later because everything else can wait. So the New York City Employee Retention Grant is for businesses with 1 to 4 employees. And this is a grant, not a loan, a grant from New York City up to $27,000 to cover 40% of your payroll for 2 months. So I put the link right here. But there's a bunch of documents you have to get together. That's why I'm saying if you are eligible for this and you haven't applied, just jump off right now, go apply. You have to be in New York City, 1 to 4 employees. You have to have been in operation for at least 6 months. No outstanding tax liens or judgments. Can show 25% loss in revenues. I'm going to circle back to that. I wrote, this is, in my opinion, the annoying part. And you'll need to upload, there's an affidavit you need to upload, which I'm only mentioning right now because you have to figure out how to get that notarized. So if you're in a rush, I would say start with figuring out how you can get it notarized. There is remote notarization now in New York State. So if you need to get something remote notarized, you can call my office, 212-390-8480. And we'll notarize it for you. I'm happy to do that. I would love to do that. Payroll records, financial documents. There's a bunch of stuff you need to get together. Okay, so in terms of the 25% loss in revenues, okay, people are asking, I'm the owner and self-employed. Am I qualified? I don't know. I've been trying to figure that out. I say just apply. And if I learn anything, I'll tell you, but like no one else seems to know either. If anybody knows, by the way, some of these questions, if somebody knows, just write in the chat because we really are all trying to figure out this stuff at the same time. So part of like what I can offer is just that we're all here and we can all share whatever information we have. All right. So showing 25% loss in revenues. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about this. This is true for both this New York City loan and another one. So if this one doesn't apply to you, you should still listen. The stupid thing about this is that they're asking you to show 2 months of losses, comparing, and there's different methods you can use to calculate. All the details are on the website, so I don't want to be too granular. But the gist of it is you compare 2 months from 2019 to 2 months in 2020. And they also want to see your average revenues over the course of 2019. Now, the problem is, I was looking at my calendar earlier today, like we didn't shut down until mid-March. I shut down my office on March 10th, and I was like, I mean, it felt way ahead of the curve at the time, even though everything happened super fast, but schools didn't even close until March 14th, March 15th. So how on earth are we supposed to show 2 months of revenues with 25% losses? What one person suggested to me, and I've heard this works through people who have successfully applied and gotten the money, is you just use projections. And for those of us who aren't, who are less business minded, like a lot of us don't love like futzing over financial documents, and you might hear projections and be like, what projections? Projections is just like making shit up. All it is like, here's what I think is going to happen. So I very strongly urge you not to be put off by the idea of putting this stuff together. What do you project? It's just a guess. What do you think your revenues are going to be? We all know that all of us are going to have lower revenues because of this. Everything is slowing down. Everything is shutting down. And so you can look at the last few weeks and try to extrapolate, whatever you want to do, but think creatively and use whatever tools you can use. For example, as a law firm, we are such that we won't likely see any losses until May. And so what I was thinking of doing, well, I don't qualify for this one, but for the other New York City one, is looking at my number of incoming inquiries, and say, okay, we had this number of leads that all of these months, and all of a sudden we had a huge drop in our inquiries. So even though we won't see revenue drop for a few months, we can project that. And nobody is any fancier than that. That's all it is. Okay, so jump off, go apply. Oh, thank you for those who are sending nice words about Tuesdays. Okay. I want to I want to keep one eye on the chats, but not get too sidetracked by the chats. I'll get better. I'll keep learning on that. Okay. Okay, PPP. I'm calling this the Internet Street Brawl. This is the one that's the other one that is potentially opening up today. The Paycheck Protection Program, I think for a lot of us is the most coveted of the loans, because it's up to 2.5 months payroll as a forgivable loan, meaning they're paying it as a loan. But if 8 weeks later you can show what you used the proceeds for, and by the way, all of these have, you have to show what you used it for. So we'll talk about that too. But for this one, you're basically gathering together your payroll reports from your payroll provider. I use Gusto, and I mean, my bookkeeper has just been logging on to Gusto and generating the reports that I need. But I'm assuming every payroll platform should be getting all this stuff together. If not, switch to Gusto and tell me. I probably get some sort of a referral credit. I love Gusto, by the way. But so the Paycheck Protection Program is underfunded. And so there's everyone's just sort of speculating, but we knew that applications were potentially going to start being accepted today. And so I've been hearing people talking about logging on at 12:01 a.m. To make sure that you get into the first batch, because people are worried money's going to run out and nobody knows when it's going to run out. Some people think 4 days. I've heard everything. Nobody really knows. But today loans open up today for there's April 3rd today for small businesses and sole proprietorships, and then April 10th for independent contractors and the self-employed. So it's like, are you seriously going to run out of money within 2 hours and then there's nothing left for self-employed? Who knows? But all I know is I'm getting in on the brawl. And I set my alarm. I woke up at midnight to check on chase.com. And I was like, okay, they're not accepting applications yet. And so then I was checking all day, and they finally said, okay, we're accepting applications. So I submitted a little interest form, and then they'll get back to me. But anyway, back to the terms of this loan. You need to basically maintain your employee and general salary levels in order to get the loan forgiven. You have to use at least 75% of the loan proceeds for payroll, although you are allowed to use the other 25% for things like rent, interest on previously existing loans, mortgage payments. There's a bunch of information online about exactly what you can and can't use it for. But right now, I would say focus on getting your documents together. SBA fees are waived, repayments deferred for 6 months to a year, although by then, if all goes well, of course, you should have hopefully had the loan forgiven. If you don't get the loan forgiven, or if you get only a portion of it forgiven, the remaining interest is 0.5%, although I've heard that could change. Who knows? Maybe it even already changed. Everything's in flux. But how to muscle your way to the front of the crowd? You need to talk to your bank, because these loans are only being administered through lenders. It's not like the New York City loans or the other federal loan where you just go online to an application. You have to find an institution. Oh, 0.5 has changed to 1%. Thanks, Adam. You have to, I'm sorry. I lost my train of thought. You have to talk to your bank. So I use Chase. So I've been checking chase.com all day. Their site was down for a while, but they also have a Twitter handle. So, I've been checking their Twitter. It's great for them. They're getting tons of attention. But the smaller banks seem to be a little bit ahead of the bigger banks, although I guess now at this point it's all moot. The thing for this is get your documents together, because there's a lot of documents you need to pull. You need, we don't know exactly what, but you don't want to be left scrambling. So I'm just pulling together everything I possibly can. Payroll reports, they're looking at your average payroll for, before it was January to December 2019, but they switched it to April 1, 2019 to end of March 2020. So average payroll over that time. Also your any health insurance invoices. They need the date your business opened, your revenue numbers. My bookkeeper pulled together my quarterly tax filings, so I have those all ready to go. And then there's also the application form itself, which is on the link I put on the PowerPoint. And so go fill out the application and just have it ready. I already signed it and scanned it, so I just have it sitting in my desktop on a little folder so that when they are ready to pull the trigger, I know that I'm ready. Okay, someone's telling me that, the banks are having a lot of trouble with this. There's insufficient guidance from the SBA. And, yesterday everything keeps changing, where the banks are saying, first, they were all promising they would be opening up the applications today. Then they switched their notifications. Oh, we might not be. Then they are. One thing to note is, don't just send in your materials to some rando. It'll go into a black hole. You need to wait and do it right. Okay, so those were the two really time-sensitive ones. And again, we don't know how quickly the money is going to run out on the payroll protection program, but I would say right after this, if you haven't, just go and investigate what your own bank is doing and make sure that you're going to be among the first in line. Okay, so this is the other New York City loan, New York City Small Business Continuity Loan Program, zero interest loan up to 75K. These are, you're in New York City and you have fewer than 100 employees. This loan is only available if you've been in operation for at least 2 years. No outstanding tax liens or judgments. Again, you have to show up to 25% loss in revenues. We talked about that before. And you need to upload affidavit, payrolls, financial documents. A plus is zero interest. I mean, that's awesome. Minus no free 10K. And I want to circle back to that. One of the federal loans available has a $10,000 grant. And one of the questions everyone, including myself, has been asking is, can we get multiple of these grants or these loans and grants? My best answer is, it seems like yes. You just can't double dip but as long as you don't say you're using, like, they really care a lot about how you're going to use the money. They want to make sure that you're using the money for legitimate business purposes and that you're keeping your employees hired, employed, and that you're paying your rent and your mortgages, because we live in a plutocracy and ultimately all they care about is the big corporations that we're all funneling our money to. So if you get one grant to cover payroll, you can get a different grant to cover, and you just have to show that you're using this money for payroll and you're using that money for your rent. Just don't apply for more money than, or you won't be eligible for more money than you can really spend for these legitimate purposes. And that's partially why they're looking at your past history. So you're not like, woohoo, free money for me to double everyone's salaries. That would be awesome, but that's not what we can do. As far as I can tell, this is eligible for sole proprietors. Yeah, as far as I can tell, the New York City loans. Lots of people are asking that. I mean, the payroll. Yes, in fact, let me circle back to the payroll protection loan. The payroll protection loan, from what I can tell, you can be eligible as a sole proprietor. And if all you have are draws, then you can count that. That's your payroll. Um, for me, apparently, from what I can tell, like I'm on a mix of W-2 and draw. And so I only get to count my W-2, which is like annoying, but whatever. But if you aren't on payroll and you only take your draw, then you can use your draw. That's your payroll as defined under the regs. But again, if in doubt, just apply, especially when there's these time sensitive ones, like the one that's due today. Okay, economic injury disaster loan. This is the other federal loan. This is the one with the free 10K. And they promise that the 10K will be paid directly to you within 3 days of submitting the application. And that seems to actually be happening. We've talked to people who applied, and within the week they got this money. So the economic injury disaster loan, sole proprietors and independent contractors are eligible for this one. That I can answer with more reasonable certainty. Okay, you apply to the federal government. It's up to 70. Wait, no, this one, no, not up to 75K. This is up to 2 million. But they look at your eligibility. They look at your credit score. They look at your ability to repay. Now, I've heard that they are being very flexible. I even read in one place that a bankruptcy would not preclude you from getting this loan. So if that's the case, I think we can all hopefully get it. Up to a 30-year term. So what they do is you get the first 10,000 as an advance within 3 days. And that 10,000 you get whether or not you're ultimately approved for the loan. So you could apply for the loan, be rejected, but you already got your $10,000 and you don't have to pay your $10,000 back. It's just a free $10,000. Now, if you also apply for the payroll protection program, the $10,000 will be deducted from your payroll, your PPP grant. So just keep that in mind. Interest rates, 3.75 for small businesses, 2.75 for nonprofits, up to a 30-year term. This one is not forgivable except the advance. Sole proprietors, independent contractors are eligible. I put like some sort of fine print here. This one, it doesn't matter how long you've been operating. There's no personal guarantee for loans below 200K. They will look at your credit score and ability to repay, but like I said, if a bankruptcy isn't a deal breaker, then hopefully like my maxed out credit cards won't be a deal breaker. And the advance payment will be deducted from PPP. That's the link right there. Unemployment. Okay, this is a plug for my next webinar. I'm going to talk a little bit about unemployment today, but PPP, the Payroll Protection Program, the federal one, the street brawl. Okay, So I reached out to my New York City's unemployment guru, Jacob Quarter, who all the employment attorneys go to for all our questions. He's the guy who, like, if I ever have anybody who has an unemployment dispute, I send them over to Jacob. So Jacob agreed to be a guest on our next webinar. That's going to be this coming Tuesday at 11 a.m. I know most people have tons of questions about unemployment, and so it's worth doing a whole segment on that. So show up, bring your questions, live Q&A. He also wrote this really awesome guide that I'll send out to you in advance so you can learn all about it on your own. Okay, unemployment, TLDR, yes, you can apply. I don't recommend this unless you really don't want to do any work and or you can't do any work, because the unemployment application, first of all, it's super hard to get into the system, just technologically. The site is super overloaded. Most people are saying it takes like up to 5 hours to get through. You have to keep hitting refresh. You call, they don't answer. You go on the website, it crashes. It doesn't save your information. You have to start all the way over. It's a huge pain in the ass. That's not why I don't recommend it, though. The reason I don't recommend it is because as a business owner, in the unemployment application, and this, you are eligible as a sole proprietor, independent contractors, solo, all of you can get unemployment, but the application includes a ton of super specific questions about, like, is there any work you can do? Are you working at all? Are you doing anything whatsoever? Or are you really forced to just sit around sitting on your hands? If you can work, and you can get the grants, then do that. There's sort of a divergence of opinions, I think, as to whether you can get the grants and get unemployment. I think you probably can if you're in a case where, like, I own a store where I have to keep paying for my supplies and the costs have increased because of issues with the supply chain, and I have to keep paying my rent and certain fixed costs, but without the physical store open, there's nothing I can physically do, and I don't need to market because I rely on foot traffic, and so I can't, like, send out some emails to everybody or whatever, then I think in theory I could not work, apply for unemployment and use unemployment benefits for myself, and get the grants to pay all of those other expenses. But that's risky. I'm not 100% sure about that. So I would say if you can get the grants, go do the grants. But you know what? If you can and you can afford to just take a break and not work and you need a break, I'm saying you do you. It's okay not to be your most productive during a fucking global pandemic. Screw King Lear and all that stuff. Like, I have my kids here. That is a lot of work. So you do you. But know that you're going to have to really certify very specifically, like you're not doing anything. All right, I'm moving much slower than I anticipated. With the unemployment for freelancers, do we need to pay back the money? Not for unemployment, no. Unemployment, by the way, just a few other quick things. The old amount was $500 a week. They increased it by $600 a week, so now it's up $1,100 a week. You get it if you're part-time, as long as you're not working 4 days or 5 days a week. If you're working 3 or fewer days a week, you can get it. Although actually, I don't know how that squares with the small business owner questions. So, interesting. I'll have to look into that. Okay. If you or your employees get sick, there's a lot of, this stuff is so complicated. My real answer is just go onto the internet. And if you go to our website, crumiller.com/COVID, we've compiled a bunch of this information. It's hard to really distill it quickly in a simplified way. But the gist of it is, there's 2 weeks fully paid sick pay, whether for sick pay or caregiving. And then after that, there's up to 12 weeks paid, and this includes whether you're sick or if you're just caring for family members, even caring for your children because their school is closed or daycare unavailable. So it's very broad. The first 2 weeks are fully paid, and then up to 12 weeks are up to, $511 a day. for yourself or caregiver up to 200 a day. Yeah. Eligible if I wrote out the factors here: quarantine, advised to quarantine by your doctor, experiencing symptoms plus seeking a diagnosis, caring for family member advised to quarantine, or caring for a kid because their school is closed or daycare unavailable. But like, go online and get all the details, because there's no need to learn all of it unless and until you have your own specific circumstance, and then you can learn the details for that circumstance. I will say that this stuff is a dollar for dollar tax credit on your payroll. When we all first heard that, we were like, WTF, what am I going to do with the tax credit in April of 2021? But how they've set it up is it's contemporaneous. So you can withhold the payroll taxes in that very payroll, so that you end up paying exactly the same amount. New York State has paid sick leave law that is through the workers' comp system. They now have additional on there through temporary disability. That's only if someone has tested positive and or they're symptomatic and have had direct contact with someone who tested positive. So while right now with all of our testing shortages, that really applies to barely anybody. New York City paid sick leave law also guarantees 5 days fully paid. Now, all of this is on top of whatever you already offer. And this is effective as of April 1. So you cannot require them to exhaust whatever you already give them. You could do that before April 1, but from April 1 onward, you have to offer all this stuff in additionally. Don't retaliate against anybody for taking leave. I hope that goes without saying, you guys. Don't discriminate. We all have unconscious biases. We don't intend to relate more strongly to people of our own gender and our own race and our own ethnic background, our own age group, but we often do. So please acknowledge your biases, be mindful. Nobody doesn't see color. I hope you all know that. If anyone thinks that you don't see color, put something in the chat, because I'll send you to way more resources. This is obviously not the topic of today's talk, but we all have unconscious biases, and now is as good a time as any to make sure that we're not acting on them. Useful miscellany. This is the same from last time, although I added the stuff I forgot before. Okay, yes, we're still hashtag crushing on Cuomo. I'll be really fast in case for those of you who were here last time. There's a 90-day moratorium on evictions. There's no utilities cutoffs. We talked about remote notarization. You can withdraw money from your 401k without the usual penalties. New York State has free mental health resources available. State courts are pretty much on pause, not accepting non-emergency filings. You can have your partner with you when giving birth. There was a phase where that wasn't true before Cuomo issued his order, and hospitals have been banning partners. So I'm sorry to report that we have heard lots of instances where people did force to give birth alone. If you had that situation, well, you probably are not on this webinar, but if you have a friend who had that situation, put them in touch with us, because we would love to help them get access to whatever mental health resources that they need. And note that your private chat on Zoom can be seen later. If you're sending secret messages to somebody, it'll get downloaded as part of the transcript. So just be mindful of that. Any indication that there will be a rent waiver, any chance it gets passed? Good question. I don't know. I haven't heard anything yet. I really thought that the state might pass something on the 31st. Given they didn't, there's bills that were introduced in both houses, so I don't know. Someone also asks, what if you operated at a loss the first year of your business? That shouldn't matter, because they're only looking at gross, from what I can tell. Can undocumented workers apply for the FFCRA? I don't believe so. That I want to double check, but I know that undocumented workers are getting screwed in this process, even with the unemployment. It's horrible, and this is not my area of expertise at all, but I encourage everybody to keep in touch with the Gender Equality Law Center and with Make the Road, who do advocacy around these issues. Take care of yourself. Okay, I wanted to share with all of you something that my daughter made. This is for anybody who is feeling sad. It says, I love you. 1, you are strong. 2, you are cool. 3, you are smart. 4, you are part of your family. Please take care of yourself first. These are really difficult times for all of us. And just remember Sadia's message. You can take that, keep that. All right, so in conclusion, keep in touch. We are here to help. Check out our website. I'm sort of obsessed with our law firm introductory video. It includes my then 4-year-old talking smack about Donald Trump. We have been working very hard on our COVID Resource Center. It includes links to all of this stuff. We're also in the process of setting up a Q&A page or a FAQ page where we're compiling all these questions and throwing them up there. Please sign up for your newsletter, tell your friends, email us with any questions, and please tell your first responder friends we're offering free services. Some of these areas are not our area of expertise, in which case we have other firms that we're in communication with, that we're partnering with, but we're here, we have resources to give, we want to help. We can do this. Okay, one more question that I'm just looking over here. Is it true that a self-employed, regarding the unemployment benefits, it's all one application. So the pandemic unemployment protections are folded into the same application as the original unemployment application. So just go to the website, good luck getting through. But once you get through, you don't need to do it twice. All right, you're welcome. Okay, we have 5 more minutes scheduled. I'm just gonna scroll through the questions. For Zoom, is that for the free account? What if you had the paid account? Good question. I think it's for all the accounts. This is just something I saw somewhere, and I was like, because I could totally see myself like sending a secret message, and then later on everybody sees it, and I would be horrified. I think it's all the accounts because the chat transcripts, if you save the recording, you download the recording, and then you also download the chat transcripts. Oh, somebody just wrote how to prevent Zoom bombing. All right, we'll share that link when we send out our message. Can small businesses apply for multiple of the options described herein, or just one or the other? I think we covered that briefly, and the answer is, from what I can tell, you can apply for anything and everything. And the issue is, what are you using the money for? So just to reiterate, they will be checking, and they don't want you to, like, if your payroll is $10,000 a month, they don't want you to apply for 2 different grants and claim for each grant, I am allocating 10K of this grant to my monthly payroll. But if you say I'm applying for a grant A, 10K for my payroll, I'm applying grant B, 10K for my rent, or whatever, then that should be fine. And I think you can get both. Employers who employees' hours vary when you say they have to maintain salaries. The salary maintaining requirement, I think there should be more guidance coming out about that, as with a lot of this stuff. But it's basically like you're supposed to be keeping it roughly the same. All right, I'm just scrolling through the questions since we have 3 more minutes. If you have any questions I didn't cover, type them in now. If there's no questions, it's fine if we want to end a couple minutes early. Yeah, someone made the good point. For PPP, you can only count a salary up to 100K. Okay, our insurance companies are telling us they don't cover for business interruption. Any guidance you can give on this? That's a great question. I have the same question. I reached out to my insurance company and I was like, do we have business interruption insurance? And they said no. And I read somewhere else, someone saying, the insurance companies are going to claim they don't offer this, but you have to fight them a little bit on it. So I'm going to make a little note to myself that's one of the things I'm going to try and look into, and maybe I can find a guest for a future webinar who specializes in insurance, because I know shit about insurance. Yeah, so all of these links, we're going to send you an email with all of the links, the recording, the slideshow, a link to our website. So you'll have all of this stuff. All right. I think we're good to go. If our bank is not currently giving any indication they'll participate in the PPP, to avoid the black void, should we start cold calling local banks? I know that Chase, my bank, is saying that you have to have been a Chase customer since before February 15th. I think smaller banks and local credit unions are the place to inquire from what I've heard. All right, dudes, it's 2:44. We're going to turn in right on time. Thank you so much for watching. Good luck. Please call us if you need a notary. We're happy to do it. I would love to play any role I can in you guys getting this money. So, continue to reach out to me. If you have any questions, you can email us, covid@crumiller.com. And we're going to be continuing to do these. Tuesday's webinar is dedicated solely to unemployment with New York City's top unemployment expert, in my opinion, because I'm not allowed to ethically say that about lawyers. But we're going to keep doing these because it seems like they've been helpful, which is really, really gratifying for me. So be in touch. Thank you, guys.